Hey up everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be lowering the GT86 and giving it a bit more of an aggressive stance. Stay tuned and let's get into it. So I've had the lowering springs for a little while, I just haven't managed to get them fitted yet because I've had a couple of queries around them and I actually went through a period of wanting to swap them out. So I've actually got some Tein springs which are behind me and we'll look at them in further detail in a second. But essentially they are 15mm lowering springs. I know that's not going to be enough for a lot of you guys and that's the reason why I wanted to swap them out. But the Tein springs only came in 26 and 16 I think it was for the other ones, and I didn't want to wait another 8 or 9 weeks to get some more springs from a different supplier. I must say that these springs are a stopgap until I either get coilover or track focused bags, i.e. the Airlift 3H. But we're going to go over to Craig who fit the manifold, we're going to get these fitted, we're going to see what the car looks like, how the car handles and how it feels in general, but we'll just take a look at the springs now and then I have to shoot off to go over to Craig. Okay, so here are the springs, you can see Tein Luxury Master High Tech. I don't know how they can be high tech, they are springs, but they come from Japan, so that's always good. So these are 15mm springs, I don't actually say it anywhere on the packaging as far as I'm aware. So we've got Luxury Master again, high tech, little Tein guy there for some reason, and nothing here. I think it's a 3-year warranty, some Japanese stuff that I can't understand, and then guarantee spec Luxury Master. So I don't know how they're going to guarantee the Luxury Master of it, but my only concern about these is that it's not going to drop the car by any big amount. However, that I have read that if you do get too low springs for the GT86 it ends up going off the bump stops, which I don't want. So maybe these are a good choice for now, just to see how it sits. If I want to buy some used springs afterwards to drop it a little bit more, I can do, there's plenty available. Otherwise I will be going for coilovers or, like I mentioned, something like the Airlift 3H, which is the auto leveling digital air management system. So we've got the springs, they are fairly heavy, so I'm going to put the camera down whilst I put them in the car, and then we're going to catch up with you guys once we get over to Craig's and have a look to see the process. I don't know how much of it I'm going to be filming, again, because it is his private space, but I'll try and get as much as possible and then we'll have a look and a talk about the car afterwards. Okay, so as you can see it's a relatively sunny day, which is good because I didn't know what the weather was going to be like when fitting them. But if you have a look behind me, the car at the rear is now jacked up. I'm just getting the rear springs on. The springs on the front have been put on. A bit of an interesting point, we didn't actually need spring compressors to get the new ones on, so Craig actually just pushed them down and I put the bolt on the top and then we could just put them on that way. The rear ones didn't need spring compressors to get them off, which is good, and the same again, so I just put the bolt on the top when Craig was putting the springs back together. The drop at the front, I must admit, hasn't been massive. Maybe a little bit disappointing, but they haven't settled whatsoever yet, so I'll come back to you guys when we get home a bit later on, once the springs are fitted and once I've had a first drive in them, and we'll see if they settle at any point. Okay, so all the springs are being fitted. We did take some before measurements which I'll put up on the screen now. Just for your information, now the springs have been fitted, the after measurements are still exactly the same, barring just a touch lower, so I think there's still a little bit of settling to do on both sides. So this video might come out in a couple of weeks after filming it, purely because I just want to see if they do need to settle, and if they do settle, how much by, just to give you guys a good idea of that. So I'll probably take the car out for a bit of a drive today and throughout this week as well, and then just keep an eye on the measurements because we've got certain points where we're measuring it by. But yeah, the install went okay. Like I said, the rears were much easier, but I'll check to you guys once I get home. Okay guys, so it's 4 days after I had the springs fitted on the GT86. It's Thursday today, 2 days before this video comes out, 4 days after I got them fitted. So I'm just going to put the camera down in a bit of a new spot in the garage, see if we can get it right. There we are. So normally when I'm in the garage you're watching this wall. It gets a bit boring after a while. It is, after all, a plain white wall. But you've got the Tein Tools logo, which I'm not affiliated with in any way, shape or form, and a couple of tools on that side. So we're going to talk about the springs. We're going to talk about a couple of things that was interesting before we fit them. We're going to talk about how the car drives and how the car handles now we've had them. And I'm going to talk about why I sort of kind of regret fitting them. So first things first, the interesting bit of information. So Craig, who fitted the springs, and a big thank you to Craig because he fit my manifold as well. You're an absolute legend. Thank you for taking so much time out of your Sunday to do it. We decided to measure each corner of the car from a specific point, which I'll show you when we go outside. And one thing that we did notice, that the driver's side front did sit a little bit higher, so about 5 or 6 mil higher. And I don't know whether that's something Toyota put in there purposely just to adjust for driver weight, that is possible, or whether it was just something wrong with either one of the shocks or springs, or 3 of the shocks or 3 of the springs, I don't know. But all I can say now is that we've been out and measured it, and it is sitting fairly even. My drive's not the straightest, so it's a bit hard to get a good idea of it, but it's definitely not as high as what it was previously. Second part we're going to speak about is how does the car drive. So first thing that I want to say is that the car with the Tein springs on now is more comfortable than the car with stock springs. I don't know why, but all I can put it down to, and all that I can think about, is that the springs are progressive that we put on the car. So in layman terms, and that's the only terms that I understand, a progressive spring, if you look at the coils on there, they're wider apart at the top and they're sort of tighter down the bottom. Not in width, but just in general distance. And the reason behind that is because when you're going over the soft bump, it doesn't utilise the whole of the spring, so it tends to be a little bit softer. So when I'm driving around and I'm going over speed bumps or little crevices in the road or little bumps, you know, rocks and things like that, I do notice that it is more comfortable. But the quicker you're going, the harder the springs are, which is good because if you're going around a track, you're going to be running hard and you want the car to run as flat as possible. So let's talk about the handling of the car then. So I've only put 15mm springs on, but there's a big difference in handling. And I just think that if you're approaching a roundabout, I can wang the car in, it goes round like a go-kart, it sticks because of the Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, and it just handles brilliantly. The stock car did handle great, as we all know, but that just exacerbates that particular feeling of just being stuck to the ground. So all in all, a very, very good spring. Tein, you make a fantastic piece of equipment, and I can't recommend anybody to look at them enough, simply because it looks great, it does a great job, and that's that. So we're going to go into point number 3, and point number 3 is probably one that you're waiting on, simply because I said I kind of regretted fitting them, so why? So I'm going to take you back to when I actually ordered these, and at the same time of when I ordered everything. So when I ordered the manifold, the wheels, the tyres, the intake, and the springs as well. So they've been sat where I'm pretty much stood for quite a while. I did go through a period of wanting to return them, or not return them, but exchange them. And a big thank you to Demon Tweets because your customer service was brilliant. The guy talking to me on the phone knew his stuff about cars, knew his stuff about lowering springs, so he had to talk a bit of sense. Probably more than I do. But anyway, so I was speaking with Demon Tweets about exchanging them. The only downside is I had to pay the postage to get them back. And I wanted to exchange them for the Tein springs, which I thought the Tein was 25mm all around. At the same price, it'd literally be one in, one out, that's it. The thing that I didn't look at is that when you actually go onto the Demon Tweets website and click on the Tein springs, or the lower springs of the two, it turns out that the front lowers about 26mm, I think it is, something odd like that, and the rear lowers by about 16mm. So it's not that much of a difference, it's 1mm on the back and 11mm on the front. So I was looking at other different options that they offered. So I was looking at ST suspension, so the KW variants, and they were 25mm all the way around. The other difficulty with that is that they were £5 more, which, you know, it's neither here nor there, I'm not really bothered about that. But there was an 8-week, 9-week back order on them, so I wouldn't even have them fitted today. So I decided to stick with the Tein ones as a bit of a stopgap, and Tein, don't worry, your product is brilliant, I really, really like it, I just wish I'd have done more. I just wish I'd have got coilovers, that's a simple thing, that's what I'm trying to say. But with that in mind, we're going to go outside and have a look at the car. I am happy with how it's sat, I just wish it was a little bit lower, but I'll see you guys outside. So we're going outside at the minute, and I apologise if there's any wind noise. We have had some troubles with the GT86, which I'll explain in a different video, but as we're slowly walking around, it's a bit tense. So that's essentially how the car is looking at the moment. So this arch gap was quite a bit bigger than what it was previously, and as you can see, it's sort of replicated around the car. So when I said that we was actually measuring them, what we'd actually measured it by is this point here, down to the ground, down there, and then this point here, down to the ground as well. Just to give us a bit of an easy point as reference, as you can see there's a body line there, and it's also the side repeater bit there, that at the top. But I think the car looks pretty decent. You know, I would like a little bit more of a drop, that's not going to be a lie. And of course, what tends to happen when I'm modifying a car, I go rushing in 100 miles an hour. I didn't do too much research on the spring side, but I've made a mistake, and you live and you learn. That's just how life is. What I must say is that the car handling has improved a lot. It does handle like a go-kart. I know it's only a 15mm drop, but it handles very, very well, which I'm impressed by, and I'm also liking as well, which makes me want coilovers more, because I know there'll be more of that there. On a bit of a lighter note, we have hit 900 subscribers. I think at the time of filming this little bit here, I'm at 906, so we're going towards that 1,000. I'm yet to think of what to do when we hit 1,000 subscribers, but that's going to be it for this video. Maybe if you have enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel, keep up to date with what I'm doing, and as always, I'll see you next time.